Throw her outside, now. You refuse to sign, so sleep on the road. Nobody is coming for you.
Madame Toby's ruby-red heel crushed the old document against the wet pavement. Behind her, the gates of Harbour Grace slammed shut. Mama Aisha sat trembling in a wheelchair, wrapped in a faded cream blanket. One small bag rested beside her. Her mustard blouse was torn at the sleeve. Her old indigo wrapper dragged through the mud. It was 5:42 in the morning. No family, no ambulance, no mercy. You refused to sign, Madame Toby hissed, so sleep on the road. Nobody is coming for you. Then the old tin box fell from Aisha's lap. Photographs, receipts, land records. Evidence buried for 27 years, scattered beneath Madame Toby's shoes. Suddenly, 5 black SUVs blocked the entrance. Doors opened at once. 5 powerful men stepped out. The man in the cobalt blue suit saw the old woman, then saw the heel crushing her papers. His face changed. All 5 men walked forward and dropped to their knees. "Mama," he whispered, "we finally found you. Do not leave this story halfway, because what happened next destroyed a respected empire. Before we continue, comment your location and local time below, and subscribe, because this is one story you will never forget." 27 years earlier, nobody in Kalama Waterside called Aisha Nwosu Mama. They called her the laundry woman. They called her the widow in room 7. Some simply called her that woman who was always carrying other people's problems on her head. Aisha was 39 then. She worked in the laundry unit of St. Catherine's Community Hospital in Port Harcourt, where the steam from industrial irons clung to her skin long after closing time. Her hands were broad from years of wringing sheets. Her fingertips had tiny white scars from bleach. Her back ached before sunrise and complained again before evening. Still, she worked. On Friday, June 18, 1999, Aisha finished her shift at 8:16 p.m. She collected her brown handbag from the metal locker, folded her faded yellow cardigan over one arm, and stepped into a night that smelled of rain, diesel, and roasted corn. The city was restless. For 6 days, bulldozers had been tearing through the eastern end of Kalama Waterside. The government notice pasted on electric poles claimed the settlement stood on unsafe land. Johnson Urban Projects, the private developer appointed to clear the area, promised compensation and temporary accommodation. But promises do not stop rain. They do not rebuild a roof. And they do not answer when poor people ask where they are supposed to sleep. Aisha had lived in Kalama for 11 years. Her single room stood outside the marked demolition boundary, but many people she knew had already lost their homes. Every evening, she passed families cooking beside broken walls. Mattresses leaned against tree trunks. Zinc sheets lay in muddy gutters like dead birds. That night, as she turned into Market Road, she heard shouting, "Thief! Hold them! Do not allow those boys to run." A crowd had formed beside a rice stall. In the middle stood 5 young men, all dusty, hungry, and frightened. The oldest looked about 21. The youngest could not have been more than 18. A trader was screaming that 43,000 naira had disappeared from her wooden cash box. "It is them," she shouted. "These useless street boys have been watching my shop since afternoon." One of the young men raised both hands. "Madam, we did not touch your money." "Shut up," a man snapped. "See how hunger has sharpened your mouth." Another man slapped the speaker across the face. The sound cut through the market. Aisha stopped. She did not know the young men. She had never seen them before. One wore a torn football jersey. One carried a sack containing 2 screwdrivers and a rusted pair of pliers. Another had a small accounting textbook tucked beneath his shirt to protect it from the rain. They looked poor. That was all the crowd needed. "Search them," somebody said. They have already passed the money to one another. Beat the truth out of them. Aisha moved through the crowd. Please, make space. Nobody listened. She pushed harder. My people, make space now. The trader turned on her. Aisha, this one does not concern you. It concerns everybody when 5 people are being beaten without proof, the crowd murmured. The young man with the swollen cheek stared at her. The trader folded her arms. So you are now a police officer? No. That is why I am asking questions instead of pretending I can judge the matter. A few people laughed. The trader did not. Aisha pointed at the cash box. When did you last see the money? Before I went to buy water. What time? Maybe 7. Who remained here? My salesgirl. Where is she? The trader looked around. The salesgirl was gone. That changed the noise, but not enough. One man said, maybe she ran because these boys threatened her. Aisha crouched beside the wooden table. The cash box sat on top of 2 stacked sacks of rice. Beneath the table, a plastic bowl had fallen on its side. Grains of rice were scattered across the ground. She looked at the trader. Did you move these sacks today? No. Did your salesgirl? How will I know? Aisha bent lower. Something green showed through a tear in the bottom sack. She reached in. A folded bundle of notes came out, wrapped in newspaper. The market became quiet. Not soft, quiet. The trader snatched the money and counted it with shaking fingers. 43,000 naira. Complete. The young men stood there, with dust on their faces and shame burning in their eyes. Nobody apologized. One person muttered that perhaps they had hidden it there. Another said hungry people were always clever. The crowd began to scatter as if nothing had happened. The young man who had been slapped wiped blood from his lip. Aisha watched the people leave. That was the first lesson she taught those 5 men, though she did not know it at the time. Being found innocent does not always restore what an accusation has taken from you. She turned to them. Are any of you injured badly? The one with the tools shook his head. The smallest one said, We are fine, Ma. He was not fine. His left eye was swelling. Aisha sighed. Where are you staying? Nobody answered. The oldest looked away. Hope no problem, Aisha said gently. I am not asking so I can carry police to your door. We do not have a door, he replied. His name was Sani Daniels. He had come to Port Harcourt from Kaduna with a haulage contractor who promised him work at the docks. The contractor disappeared after collecting money for accommodation from 12 laborers. Sani had slept under an abandoned trailer for 3 weeks. The young man with the swollen cheek was Ifini Eze. He had worked as a porter in the waterfront market until the warehouse where he slept was demolished. The one with the textbook was Kelechi Ibe. He had lost his apprenticeship when his master's shop went down with the first row of houses. He spoke little and watched everything. The one carrying tools was Chukwuma George. He repaired radios, fans, and small generators wherever anybody allowed him to sit. His employer had fled the city owing him 4 months' wages. The youngest was Femi Okafor. He had completed 1 year at a polytechnic before his aunt, who paid his fees, died. Since then, he had been delivering parcels in the day and sleeping in a motor park at night. 5 adults. 5 different roads. One accusation had turned them into the same thing in the eyes of the crowd. Street boys. Aisha looked at their faces. Then she looked at the dark clouds gathering over the market. My room is small, she said. Very small. None of them moved. I have 1 mat, 1 narrow bed, and 1 pot that is already tired of working. But rain is coming. You can sleep there tonight. Sunny frowned. All of us? Aisha nodded. Femi stared at her as if she had spoken in a strange language. Why? He asked. Because you need somewhere dry. That is not an answer. Aisha almost smiled. It is the only answer I have. They followed her home in silence, Room 7 was behind a row of shops near the old timber yard. The building had one outdoor tap, 2 shared toilets, and a corridor that flooded whenever rain lasted more than 30 minutes. Aisha's room measured 3 paces by 5. A narrow iron bed stood against one wall. A kerosene stove occupied the corner. Above it, she kept 3 plates, 2 cups, and a blue plastic bowl with a crack running through the middle. When the 5 men entered, the room seemed to shrink. Aisha pointed at the floor. "Sit." She poured Gary into the blue bowl, added water, groundnut, and the last spoon of sugar in her tin. It was not enough for 6 people, so she made it thinner. Nobody complained. They ate with spoons, passing the bowl from hand to hand. When it reached Aisha, she took only 2 mouthfuls. Kelechi noticed. "You have not eaten, Ma. I ate at work." It was a lie. He knew. He said nothing. After the meal, Aisha spread her only mat across the floor. She gave the bed to Femi because his eye was swollen and his body was shivering. The others slept shoulder to shoulder. Aisha sat on a wooden stool beside the door with her back against the wall. At 1:23 a.m., thunder shook the roof. Sani opened his eyes and found her still sitting there. "You should sleep, Ma. So should you. I am not tired. You are 21 and lying on a hard floor after carrying sacks since morning. Do not lie badly." He gave a small laugh. Then his face changed. "Are you not afraid of us?" Aisha looked at the 5 bodies crowded into her room. Yes, the answer surprised him. She continued, "Fear is not always a command. Sometimes it is only information. I have locked my bag. I have kept the knife near me, and I have still opened my door." Sani studied her for a long time. That does not sound like trust. It is the beginning of trust. By morning, the rain had stopped. Aisha expected them to leave. They did. But at 6:40 that evening, Ifeanyi returned, carrying a bundle of firewood. Chukwuma came with a repaired table fan he had found in a refuse heap. Kelechi brought 2 loaves of bread. Femi swept the corridor. Sani returned last with 6 small sachets of water. Aisha stood in the doorway, squeezing her face. "What is all this?" "Payment," Sani said. "For one night?" "For not allowing them to break our bones in the market." Aisha looked from one face to another. "My people, I did not rent this room for 6 adults." "We know," Ifeanyi said quickly. "We only came to say thank you." Then the landlord appeared. He was a heavy man who collected rent with a smile and delivered insults free of charge. He looked at the 5 young men in the corridor, and his mouth tightened. "Aisha, what is this? They slept here because of rain, all of them?" "Yes. This is a compound, not a rehabilitation center. I do not want thieves around my property." "They are not thieves." He laughed. "You have known them for 1 day, and now you want to swear affidavit for them. I know that an accusation is not evidence." The landlord stepped closer. "Know your level, woman. You wash rich people's dirty bedsheets. Do not stand here and teach me law." Aisha's jaw tightened. The 5 men shifted behind her. She raised one hand without turning. They stopped. The landlord pointed at the gate. "They must leave before dark. If they sleep here again, your rent will increase from 1,800 to 3,200 naira. That is not what our agreement says." "You have an agreement?" Aisha walked into her room, opened her handbag, and brought out a folded receipt book. The landlord's smile disappeared. She had kept every rent receipt for 11 years. "Next time," she said, "write what you want to change. Sign it. Give me 1 copy. Then we can discuss." The landlord snatched his eyes away from the receipts. "Just remove these boys from my compound." He left. The corridor remained silent until his door slammed. Femi exhaled. "Ma, you nearly gave that man a heart attack. I only showed him paper." "That is the same thing for some people," Kelechi said. Aisha looked at him. It was the first time she heard him make a joke. That night, she allowed the 5 men to return. But she made rules. They sat on the floor while she stood beside the kerosene stove like a schoolteacher who had no blackboard. "No stealing," she began. "Nobody spoke. No fighting in this compound." Sani nodded. "No bringing money into this room if you cannot explain where it came from." Ifini rubbed his palms together. "No using hunger as an excuse to injure another person. Hunger can explain desperation. It cannot turn wrong into right." Kelechi's eyes lifted. Aisha continued. "Every kobo we earn and spend will enter this exercise book. If somebody works, we write the amount. If somebody buys food, we write it. If anybody borrows, we write it. Memory can become a liar when people are angry." She placed an old-school exercise book in front of them. On the first page, she wrote 6 names: Aisha Nwosu, Sani Daniels, Ifeanyi Eze, Kelechi Ibe, Chukwuma George, Femi Okafor. Then she drew 2 columns, money in, money out. The room was still. Femi swallowed. "What if we cannot contribute every day?" "Then you tribute work. Sweep, fetch water, cook, repair something, help somebody fill a form. A person's value is not measured only by the cash in his pocket." Sani looked at the page. "Are you saying we can stay?" "For 3 nights. 3 nights became 2 weeks. 2 weeks became 3 months. The 6 of them learned how to turn sideways at the same time when one person needed to cross the room. They cooked in shifts. They washed at the outdoor tap before dawn. They kept their few belongings in rice sacks hung from nails. Aisha's neighbors complained. One woman said the young men would rob everybody before Christmas. Another warned Aisha that no decent person would enter her room again. A shop owner refused to sell food to them on credit. Though he had given credit to other tenants for years, Aisha did not respond to every insult. She responded to systems. She found the address of a legal aid office near the old secretariat. She took the 5 men there on a Monday morning and waited 4 hours beneath a broken ceiling fan. A tired lawyer explained that without identity documents, employers could underpay them, police could detain them more easily, and landlords could deny their agreements. So they began with names, birth affidavits, letters of identification, passport photographs, proof of residence. The process took money they did not have and patience nobody respected. At one office, a clerk pushed their forms aside. "Come back next month." Aisha looked at the nearly empty waiting room. "Why next month? Madam, do not disturb me." "What is missing from the forms?" "Nothing." "Then why next month?" The clerk looked at her faded dress and smiled without kindness. "You people think government office is where you enter from the road and start making noise. Bring something for processing." Aisha understood. "How much is the official fee?" The clerk's face hardened. "I said come next month." Aisha took out the exercise book. She wrote the date, the time, the desk number. The clerk leaned forward. "What are you writing? What happened? Are you threatening me?" "No, I am remembering properly. The forms were processed that afternoon. It was not victory, it was paperwork. But paperwork opened doors that pity could not. Chukwuma entered an electrical repair apprenticeship. Ifini got casual work at the port through a church member who agreed to pay him per day in writing. Kelechi joined an evening literacy and bookkeeping class. Femi returned to his studies through a small scholarship. Sani found work at a mechanic yard. Their progress was slow. Some weeks, all 6 ate only once a day. Some months, rent consumed everything. Aisha took extra laundry from nurses. She washed uniforms at night until her knuckles split. The young men complained that she was doing too much, but she told them not to carry her on their heads. "We are building a ladder," she said. "If all of us stand on one step, it will break." One evening in October, Sani came home with 3,500 naira folded inside his sock. That amount was more than his mechanic yard paid in 2 weeks. Aisha was cooking beans when he entered. She saw how carefully he closed the door. She saw how he avoided the exercise book. "Where did the money come from?" she asked. Sani froze. The others looked up. "My ogre gave me an advance." Aisha turned down the stove. "Which ogre?" "The workshop owner." "What work did you do?" "Extra work." "What work?" Sani's jaw tightened. "Mama, must every small thing become an interview?" "Yes." The room changed. He pulled the money out and threw it on the floor. "A man paid me to deliver 1 parcel from mile 1 to the waterside. I did not open it. I did not steal it. I only carried it." Femi sat up. "What was inside?" "I said I did not open it." Aisha stared at the money. "Did the man tell you not to open it?" Sani said nothing. "Did he ask for your name? Did he give you a receipt?" "No." "Did he tell you why the parcel was worth 3,500 naira?" Sani kicked the wall. "We are hungry." His voice shook the cups on the shelf. "We are 6 people inside 1 room. You are washing bed sheets until your hands bleed. Ifinyi is carrying bags that are heavier than him. Kelechi is using candle to read because we cannot buy kerosene. And now somebody gives me money for 1 simple delivery. You are standing there as if I killed somebody." Aisha's face softened, but her voice did not. "Hunger is loud, Sani. That is why people use it to give dangerous work to those who have no choices. You do not know what was inside. Neither do you." He looked away. Aisha picked up the money. "Tomorrow, you will return it." Sani laughed bitterly. "And tell the man what? That my poor laundry mother has become my conscience? Yes. What if he beats me? I will go with you." "You?" "I am the person who told you to return it." The next morning, they went together. The man who had paid Sani was not pleased. He insulted Aisha, called her a foolish old woman, and warned Sani that honest people remained poor because they were too afraid to take opportunity. Aisha placed the money on his table. "Opportunity that cannot explain itself is often a trap." The man spat beside her foot. They left. For 2 days, Sani did not speak to Aisha. On the 3rd day, police raided the address where he had delivered the parcel. The building had been used to store stolen vehicle parts. Sani sat outside room 7 for a long time. When Aisha returned from work, he stood. "I am sorry." She unlocked the door. "Did you learn?" "Yes." "Then enter. Beans is on the stove." She did not shame him forever for the worst decision he nearly made. That was another lesson. Accountability should close a dangerous road, not close every road back home. But Aisha herself was hiding a road she had once taken. Behind the old clothes beneath her bed sat a rusted tin box. Inside were 83 names, 3 payment vouchers, a photograph, a cassette tape, and 1 statement carrying her signature. The signature that had helped bury an entire community. Aisha opened that box only when she was alone. Never when the 5 young men were awake. Never when a neighbor could see through the window. She would sit on the floor after midnight, spread the documents on her bed, and stare at the same line until the letters blurred. Kalama Resettlement Compensation Schedule. 83 households. Total approved payment, 18,742,650 naira. The figure had once sounded too large for Aisha to understand. Yet the people whose names appeared beneath it had slept beside gutters. Some had left Port Harcourt entirely. Some had died waiting for money they were told had already been paid. Aisha knew why the official records said otherwise. Before she became a full-time laundry worker, she had helped at the temporary claims desk set up inside St. Catherine's old administrative building. She was not an accountant. She was simply one of the few women in Kalama who could read forms confidently and explain them in plain language. For 11 days, she wrote names for elderly residents. She copied identity numbers. She read compensation terms aloud to men who could sign only with a thumbprint. On the 12th day, the payment register changed. 31 names disappeared. 17 amounts were reduced. A new page appeared stating that all affected residents had accepted final settlement. Aisha asked the young legal officer supervising the desk why. His name was Uche Johnson. He was 41 years younger than the chief he would later become in people's imagination. Then, he wore narrow ties, polished black shoes, and the hungry smile of a man who had decided that rules were only useful when they served him. The schedule was corrected, he told her. Corrected by whom? Head office. Some of these people have not received anything. Uch leaned back in his chair. Madam Aisha, your work is to help them fill forms. Do not carry matters above your salary on your head. She continued asking. 3 days later, her younger brother was detained after a fight near a loading bay. He had not started the fight, but a knife had been found close to him. Aisha spent 2 nights moving from one police station to another, begging for information. On the 3rd morning, Uch called her into a storeroom. A brown envelope sat on the table, 68,500 naira. Beside it lay a typed statement saying Aisha had witnessed residents receive full payment and leave voluntarily. If you sign, Uche said, your brother's matter will disappear. Aisha stared at him. And if I do not? He adjusted his cuff. Police files can become deep wells. A person may fall inside, and nobody will hear the sound. Aisha signed. Her brother came home the next evening. She used part of the money to settle legal fees, part to move him out of the city, and part to help 3 displaced families buy food. She told herself that sharing the money made it less dirty. It did not. Before leaving the claims desk, she copied the original schedule, collected duplicate vouchers from a rubbish pile, and accepted a cassette from an accounts clerk who said, "Keep this somewhere safe. One day somebody may need to hear it." The clerk left Port Harcourt soon after. Aisha never saw him again. For years, fear sat beside the tin box. So did shame. She told herself she was waiting for the right time. Then the hospital expansion began. Then her husband became ill. Then he died. Then rent increased. Then 5 homeless men entered her room and needed every bit of strength she had. There was always another reason. Silence can dress like patience when a person is afraid to call it by its real name. The 5 young men knew nothing about the box. They only knew that Aisha kept records. She recorded rent, food, transport, school fees. Even the 2 naira Kelechi once borrowed to buy a pencil entered the exercise book. "Why are you writing that one?" he protested. "It is only 2 naira. Small money becomes big quarrel when nobody remembers. But I will pay, I believe you. The book will help both of us remember what we believe." Kelechi paid it the next day. Years later, he would say that his first lesson in forensic accounting began with 2 naira and a woman who refused to let poverty destroy trust. By early 2000, their room could no longer contain them. Ifinyi and Sani rented a half-finished shop behind a mechanic yard. Chukwuma slept in the workshop where he was learning electrical repairs. Femi moved into a crowded student hostel after receiving a bursary from a church education fund. Kelechi remained with Aisha the longest because his evening class ended late and he had nowhere safe to keep his books. The separation hurt more than anybody admitted. On the day Ifinyi carried out his sack, he stood at the door for 10 minutes. Aisha was sorting hospital uniforms. "Have you forgotten something?" she asked. "No. Then why are you blocking breeze?" He laughed, but tears had entered his eyes. "When I came here, I had 1 shirt. You now have 3. Do not become proud." "I am serious, Mama. So am I." He knelt. Aisha immediately pulled him up. What is this? I do not know how to thank you. Pay your rent on time. Do not overload any vehicle. Do not cheat the people who work under you when God gives you the chance to employ others. I do not even own a bicycle. Advice is cheaper before success. He held her hands. I will come every Sunday. At first he did. All 5 did. Sunday became the day room 7 stretched beyond its walls. They brought rice, fish, bread, and stories. Aisha asked about wages before asking about promotions. She checked whether their employers gave them written terms. She reminded them that being grateful did not mean accepting abuse. Respect is not obedience to wrongdoing, she told Femi when a lecturer demanded money to alter a grade. You can speak politely and still refuse. Femi reported the demand through a student association. The process was messy. His classmates called him troublesome. The lecturer delayed his recommendation letter, but the demand stopped. Chukwuma's employer was more difficult. For 8 months, the man paid him irregularly and claimed apprenticeship meant free labor. Chukwuma repaired 17 generators, 9 standing fans, and 4 industrial water pumps. His name appeared on none of the invoices. When he complained, the employer said, "You came here smelling of gutter. I taught you work. Now you want to count money with me?" Chukwuma returned to Aisha furious. I will break all the machines I repaired. And then? He will know I am not useless. He already knows, that is why he is using your skill. Aisha brought out the exercise book. Write every job you remember. Date, customer, fault, what you repaired, who saw you doing it. For what? To prove the value you are feeling, but cannot show. They spent 3 nights rebuilding 8 months of work from memory, receipts, and customer descriptions. Femi helped draft a demand letter. The legal aid office sent it. The employer laughed at first. Then, 3 customers confirmed Chukwuma had done the repairs. He paid part of the outstanding wages and issued a certificate of apprenticeship. It was not all Chukwuma deserved, but it was enough for him to move forward without burning the road behind him. Kelechi's struggle came from money. He passed his bookkeeping examination with the highest score in his class, then discovered he could not collect the certificate until he paid an outstanding fee of 7,800 naira. He stopped attending lessons. Aisha found him one evening staring at the tin roof while rain tapped above them. You did not go to class. There is no point. Who said? The school. What exactly did they say? He told her. Aisha listened. Then she opened the exercise book and calculated what they had. 3,140 naira. She removed the bangles her late husband had given her and sold them the next day for 4,900. When Kelechi discovered what she had done, he became angry. You should not have sold them. They were metal. They were from your husband. My husband did not marry the bangles. But they mattered to you. So do you. Kelechi turned away because his face had broken. Aisha touched his shoulder. Listen to me. Education is not magic. A certificate will not make life fair. But knowledge gives your mind more doors. Enter as many as you can. Kelechi collected the certificate. He later trained under a small accounting firm. The first time he found an unexplained payment hidden inside a transport ledger, he remembered the exercise book in room 7. Numbers, Aisha had taught him, were not honest by themselves. People could arrange them to lie. Femi nearly gave up on law before he properly began. He failed an entrance examination once, then again. On the second result day, he came to Aisha's room, placed the paper on her table and said, Maybe I am forcing what is not for me. Aisha read the scores. You improved. I failed. Both are true. He sat heavily. My classmates have moved ahead. Life is not a bus queue. Another person entering before you does not cancel your destination. That sounds nice, Mama. It does not pay another exam fee. No. So let us stop sounding nice and make a plan. She drew 3 columns. What went wrong? What can change? What it will cost. Femi studied the page. Must everything become a table in this house? Confusion likes empty paper. He laughed despite himself. He passed on the 3rd attempt. Sani built a different life. The mechanic yard taught him engines, but it also showed him how easily desperate young men were used. Workshop owners collected apprentices, made them work for years, then dismissed them before settlement. Contractors recruited laborers, took identity cards, and vanished after withholding wages. Sani started helping workers write down agreements before accepting jobs. At first, people mocked him. Ogre lawyer without office, they called him. He continued. He eventually opened a small vocational center in a rented warehouse. It had 6 welding machines, 4 workbenches, and a rule that every apprentice must receive a written training schedule. He named the first program Open Door. Ifini's road was the roughest physically. He worked at the port, then drove a delivery van, then managed 3 vehicles for a food distributor. In 2006, his employer ordered him to load a truck beyond its legal capacity because an extra trip would cost money. Ifini refused. The employer slapped the keys out of his hand. You were sleeping in a warehouse when I picked you. Now you are forming safety officer. The rear tire is already weak, sir. Drive it. If the tire bursts, people can die. Then die quietly and stop wasting my time. Ifini left the job. For 4 months, he had no steady income. People called him foolish. Even Sani asked whether he could not have driven slowly and managed the situation. Aisha supported him. Safety is not stubbornness, she said. A person who controls work must also carry responsibility for the danger. 2 weeks later, another driver took the same truck. The rear tire burst on Abba Road. The truck overturned. 2 people were injured. Ifini visited them at the hospital. He did not say, I warned you. He organized contributions for their treatment. Years later, when he started his own transport company with 1 second-hand van and money borrowed from 3 friends, he made maintenance records compulsory. Drivers were allowed to refuse unsafe vehicles without losing their jobs. Some clients complained. His accident rate remained low. That became his reputation. The 5 men did not rise together like actors in a miracle montage. They stumbled. They lost money. They trusted wrong people. Chukwuma's first repair shop flooded in 2009. Kelechi was dismissed from a firm after questioning a partner's expense claims. Femi spent months doing unpaid legal work, while classmates joined bigger chambers. Sani's first training center closed because rent doubled. Ifini lost a vehicle to an armed robbery and still paid the driver's medical bills. Through it all, they returned to Aisha, sometimes for food, sometimes for silence, sometimes because success can confuse a person as much as failure. When Ifini bought his first new truck, he drove it to room 7 before taking it to the company yard. The vehicle could not enter the narrow street, so he parked at the junction and led Aisha there by the hand. The truck was white, shining, and taller than the building where they had once shared Gary. People gathered. Ifini handed Aisha the key. This is yours. She slapped his hand lightly. God forbid, what will I do with a truck? Mama, without you, without mechanics, drivers, customers, and the people who lent you money, this truck will still not exist. Do not turn one person into a miracle so you can forget the whole community that helped you. Ifini looked embarrassed. Aisha softened. But I am proud of you. That was enough. By 2015, the 5 men had become respected in different corners of Nigerian life. Ifeni's company operated 32 vehicles and employed 71 people. Kelechi had become a forensic accountant known for following missing money through shell companies and duplicated invoices. Chukwuma managed engineering projects and specialized in auditing construction claims. Femi had built a legal practice around land rights, workplace dignity, and the rights of elderly people to make decisions about their own lives. Sani's new vocational organization ran transitional housing and skills programs in 3 states. They were not perfect men. Success introduced fresh temptations. Ifeni once wanted to dismiss a driver publicly after a costly mistake. Aisha asked whether humiliation would repair the vehicle. He changed the disciplinary process. Kelechi became so suspicious of everybody that he almost destroyed a friendship over a bookkeeping error. Aisha reminded him that evidence should lead suspicion, not follow it. Femi began speaking in legal language, even to people who could not understand him. Aisha stopped him halfway through one explanation. "My son, if the person whose rights you are defending cannot understand you, then your big grammar is serving you, not them." He never forgot. Sani wanted to expand too quickly and accepted funding, with conditions that would have excluded people without formal education. Aisha told him not to build a door and then make the key impossible to find. Chukwuma became quiet when under pressure. Aisha warned him that silence could protect peace for one day and protect wrongdoing for 27 years. When she said that, her voice changed. Chukwuma noticed. "Mama, is there something you want to tell us?" Aisha looked toward the bed where the tin box remained hidden. "Not today." He did not force her. That was in 2016. 10 more years would pass before the box opened in front of them. The distance began slowly. Aisha left room 7 after the building was sold. She rented a small, self-contained room farther from the city center. The 5 men offered to buy her a house, but she refused every grand plan. "I want a door I can close myself," she told them. "Not a mansion where somebody is always asking whether I have eaten." They settled on a modest bungalow in a quiet compound. The property was placed in a trust so no one son could claim control over it. Aisha approved that arrangement. Then her knees worsened. Arthritis turned stairs into enemies. A fall in her bathroom left her with a fractured wrist. She recovered, but fear entered her movements. She stopped traveling alone. She missed hospital appointments because she did not want to disturb anybody. The 5 men hired a caregiver and created a schedule. For a while it worked. Then the caregiver left without notice. Aisha fell again, this time near the kitchen, and remained on the floor for nearly 2 hours before a neighbor heard her. Femi wanted her to move into his home. Ifeni wanted her close to his family. Sani offered a private room at the open-door residence. Aisha rejected all 3. "I am not a parcel to be passed from one successful son to another," she said. "I need care, not ownership." Harbor Grace Senior Residence appeared to offer the answer. The brochures showed wide corridors, trained nurses, gardens, physiotherapy, and smiling residents painting clay pots. The facility had been opened by Johnson Urban Projects and promoted as a charitable service for elderly people of modest means. Chief Uche Johnson appeared on the cover beside the words, "Dignity has no expira date." Aisha stared at his photograph for a long time. Femi noticed. "You know him?" Her fingers tightened around the brochure. "I knew somebody with that face many years ago." "What happened?" Aisha folded the paper. "Nothing I am ready to discuss." Femi did not like the answer. But Aisha was not a child. Respecting her meant accepting that she could refuse a conversation. They toured the facility. Madam Toby Adebayo welcomed them in an emerald green dress and low gold shoes. She spoke softly. She knew each staff member's name. She held Aisha's hand and called her mummy within 10 minutes. "We believe elderly people must remain in control of their lives," she said. "No decision is made without informed consent." Femi asked for the resident agreement. Toby produced it immediately. Kelechi reviewed the fees. Chukwuma inspected the rails, generators, lifts, and fire exits. Ifini questioned transport arrangements. Sani asked how residents without family were protected from isolation. Madam Toby answered everything. Harbour Grace looked clean, professional, safe. That was because the part built for visitors was all three. Aisha moved in on March 11, 2024. For the first month, the 5 men visited regularly. Then their calls began to fail. A nurse said Aisha was sleeping. A receptionist said she was in physiotherapy. Madam Toby said Aisha was struggling emotionally and had requested fewer visits while she adjusted. When Aisha asked why her sons had not called, staff told her they were busy. "They are important men, Mummy," one worker said. "Do not worry yourself." Aisha wrote every missed call in a small notebook. April 7. No connection. April 12. Femi unavailable. April 18. Message not delivered. By May, her personal phone had disappeared. Madam Toby said Aisha had misplaced it. Aisha knew she had not. She had placed it inside the right drawer beside her reading glasses at 8:35 p.m. The next morning, both were gone. The glasses returned. The phone did not. That was when Aisha understood that Harbour Grace was not simply careless. Somebody wanted her quiet again. Harbour Grace changed after visiting hours. The smiles became instructions. The soft voices became warnings. Residents who asked too many questions waited longer for assistance. Those who complained about food were called ungrateful. Those who forgot one detail were treated as if they had forgotten everything. Madame Toby did not shout often. She did not need to. She controlled access to phones, transport, visitors, medication reviews, and the small comforts that made institutional life bearable. A cup of tea, an extra blanket, 10 minutes in the garden, a call to somebody outside. Power does not always arrive with a raised hand. Sometimes it carries a clipboard. At first, Aisha watched. An elderly man was given a document to sign before breakfast. When he asked what it contained, a staff member said it was only routine. A woman who could read only simple English was told to press her thumb beneath 3 pages she had not been allowed to hear. Aisha asked for copies. Madam Toby smiled. "Mummy Aisha, these are internal care documents. Then why are residents signing them? They concern their care. Then they should understand them." Toby's smile remained, but warmth left it. "You have strong opinions. I have eyes." 2 weeks later, every resident received a cream envelope labeled Harbour Grace Community Renewal Program. The first page spoke about better gardens, improved medical rooms, and new accommodation. The final pages were different. They referred to surrendering any historical, beneficial, customary, or equitable interest in the Harbour Grace site and adjoining parcels. Aisha read the address twice. Parcel 14B, Kalama Waterfront Redevelopment Zone. Her chest tightened. The land beneath Harbour Grace was part of the same settlement cleared in 1999. The care home had not been built only to help elderly people. It had also gathered some of the last surviving claimants under one roof. Aisha asked for the full site map. The administrator refused. She asked for independent legal advice. Madam Toby said the facility's lawyer had already approved the document. "That lawyer works for Harbour Grace," Aisha said. "Who works for the residents?" Toby leaned against the desk. "Mummy, nobody is taking anything from you. The development will increase the value of this place. I do not own this place, exactly. So signing should not trouble you." Aisha placed the envelope on the desk. If my signature has no value, you will not need it. The silence between them became sharp. Madam Toby lowered her voice. You should be careful. At your age, too much stress is not good for the mind. Aisha heard the threat hiding inside concern. She had heard that language before. Not the same words. The same purpose. She returned to her room and wrote the date. May 29, 2026. Time, 10:14 a.m. Document presented without independent explanation. Signature refused. That evening, her dinner arrived 46 minutes late. The next morning, staff said the garden was closed for maintenance, though other residents were outside. Her physiotherapy session disappeared from the schedule. A note appeared in her care file describing her as increasingly suspicious and oppositional. Aisha requested a medical review. Madam Toby chose the doctor. Aisha refused. I want somebody who does not work for this facility. Toby laughed softly. You think everybody is planning against you? I think a person asking me to surrender rights should not also decide whether my refusal is a symptom. The laughter stopped. Aisha began speaking quietly to other residents. She did not tell them what to do. She asked what they understood. Most believed they had signed forms for repairs. 3 said they had been promised reduced fees. 2 could not remember receiving copies. 1 had pressed his thumb because a staff member warned that residents who refused might be transferred. Aisha wrote everything down with permission. She kept no secret recordings in private rooms. She did not spread rumors. She documented names only when people agreed. That mattered. Good intentions do not cancel another person's right to consent. On June 6, Madam Toby entered Aisha's room with 2 administrators. The cream envelope was in her hand. Today is the final deadline. Aisha sat beside the window in her mustard blouse and indigo wrapper. My answer is still no. You are delaying benefits for everybody. 1 resident cannot delay a project unless 1 resident has a right you are trying to remove. Toby dropped the papers on the table. Do you know how much this facility spends on you every month? My sons pay the agreed fee. Your sons have not visited for months, because you have blocked them. Madam Toby's eyes narrowed. That is a very serious accusation, so give me my phone. You misplaced it. Give me the call logs from reception. Mummy Aisha, you are becoming difficult. I am becoming specific. 1 administrator looked down to hide a reaction. Toby noticed. She turned to him. Leave us. When the door closed, she moved closer to Aisha. You are not in room 7 anymore. There are rules here. Yes, and this place cannot carry 1 stubborn old laundry woman on its head. Aisha looked up. Then stop carrying me. Allow me to call my lawyer. Your lawyer is your son. Yes, that is a conflict of interest. No. Preventing me from reaching him is abuse. Madam Toby's face hardened completely. For the first time, the woman in the brochures disappeared. You think because 5 men became successful after eating your watery gari, you can challenge a company that built half this district? Aisha's breathing slowed. Toby knew. Not only about her sons, about room 7, about Kalama. Who told you that story? Aisha asked. Madam Toby smiled again. Chief Uche remembers people who interfere with progress. Aisha's fingers curled around the arm of her chair. The name had followed her for 27 years. Now it stood inside her room. Tell him I still have the original schedule. Toby's smile vanished. Aisha regretted the sentence immediately. Not because it was untrue, because it revealed what Toby needed to find. That night, Aisha stayed awake until 2 a.m. She waited for the corridor to quiet, then opened the false bottom of her traveling bag. The rusted tin box was still there. She had carried it from room 7 to the bungalow, and from the bungalow to Harbor Grace. She had told herself she kept it close because she intended to act. The truth was less flattering. She kept it close because letting it go would have meant admitting she might never act. Aisha removed one photograph and tucked it inside her blouse. She wrapped the cassette in a clean handkerchief. She placed the old exercise book of household accounts beneath the land documents. Then she waited. At 3:12 a.m., the door opened. A staff member entered with a torch. Aisha closed her eyes. The person searched the wardrobe, drawers, and bedside cabinet. When the torch moved toward the traveling bag, Aisha coughed. The staff member froze. "Who is there?" Aisha asked. The torch went off. The door closed. By morning, Madame Toby had changed her approach. She sent tea, fresh fruit, a new phone. The device contained only 4 saved numbers, none belonging to Aisha's sons. Aisha refused it. At noon, Toby returned with a typed notice accusing Aisha of threatening staff, disrupting other residents, and keeping hazardous materials in her room. "Hazardous materials?" Aisha asked. "Old cassette tapes can contain damaged chemicals." Aisha almost laughed. "You searched my room. We conducted a safety inspection. While I was sleeping? You are being discharged tomorrow morning." "Discharged to where?" "Your family. You have not contacted them. We have made reasonable attempts." "Show me." Toby gathered the documents. "You will receive your belongings at the gate." Aisha reached for the notice. Madame Toby pulled it back. "You do not need a copy. I will not sign what I cannot keep." "You are not being asked to sign." "Then you know this is not a proper discharge." Toby walked to the door. "Mummy Aisha, sometimes dignity means accepting when your time in a place is over." Aisha looked at her. "No, sometimes dignity means refusing to let somebody rename cruelty." The staff member who had entered Aisha's room that night was not loyal to Madame Toby. He had obeyed because he feared losing his job, but fear had limits. When he heard that Aisha would be put outside before dawn, he searched the admissions system for an emergency contact. Most numbers had been deleted. One remained inside an archived invoice, Femi Okafor. At 4:11 a.m., Femi's phone vibrated on a hotel bedside table 6 kilometers away. He was in Port Harcourt with Ifinyi, Kelechi, Chukwuma, and Sani for the annual board meeting of the Open Door Skills Trust. The 5 men had planned to visit Aisha after breakfast and demand an explanation for months of blocked contact. The message contained one sentence and a photograph. "They are putting Mama Aisha outside before 6 a.m. In the photograph, Aisha sat dressed in her mustard blouse, holding a rusted tin box. Femi called the number. It was already switched off. He called his brothers. By 4:19, all 5 were in the hotel corridor. Ifinyi wore trousers and a white undershirt. Kelechi had not buttoned his cuffs. Chukwuma carried his laptop. Sani was barefoot. Femi held up the photograph. For 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Then Ifinyi grabbed his car keys. "We are going there now." Femi blocked him. "Wait. Move. Listen to me. We record everything. Nobody touches anybody. Nobody threatens staff. We bring Mama out first. Then we preserve evidence." Ifinyi's eyes burned. "They put her outside like refuse. And you are talking about procedure?" "Yes. Because anger can destroy the proof we need to protect her." Sani put a hand on Ifinyi's shoulder. "Mama did not raise us to become the people we hate." Ifinyi looked from one brother to another. Then he nodded. They dressed quickly. The hotel had provided 3 SUVs. Ifinyi's local office sent 2 more. By 4:52, 5 black vehicles were moving through the wet streets of Port Harcourt. At Harbour Grace, Madame Toby began the discharge at 5:31. 2 guards rolled Aisha through the side entrance. Her small travel bag was placed beside the gate. The tin box rested on her lap because she had refused to release it. Rain had stopped, but the pavement remained wet. Aisha looked at the locked gate. Please call my son. Toby stood under an umbrella, dressed in a ruby-red suit chosen for a television interview later that morning. We have called everybody. That is not true. You are no longer our responsibility. Aisha gripped the box. Give me the discharge notice. You do not need it. I need proof that you put a 66-year-old woman outside before sunrise without transport. Toby stepped closer. Do you know how irritating you are? Aisha said nothing. Toby's voice rose. You arrived here with one old bag and the pride of a retired laundrywoman. We fed you. We bathed you. We gave you a room you could never afford by yourself. Yet every day, questions, copies, consent, rights. Do you think this is a courtroom? No, then stop behaving as if you own the place. I do not own it. That is why I am asking who does. Toby pointed toward the road. Throw her outside, now. The guard pushed the wheelchair beyond the gate. Aisha's travel bag fell sideways. The tin box slipped from her lap. Its weak latch broke. Documents scattered across the pavement. Madame Toby saw the old compensation schedule and lunged forward. Her ruby-red heel landed on the page before Aisha could reach it. Behind her, the gates slammed shut. Aisha sat trembling in the wheelchair, wrapped in a faded cream blanket. One small bag rested beside her. Her mustard blouse was torn at the sleeve. Her indigo wrapper dragged through the mud. It was 5:42 in the morning. No ambulance, no discharge transport, no mercy. You refuse to sign, Madame Toby hissed. So sleep on the road. Nobody is coming for you. Then headlights swept across the gate. 5 black SUVs stopped in a line. Doors opened. Femi stepped out first in a cobalt blue suit. Ifeanyi followed, then Kelechi, Chukwuma, and Sani. Femi saw Aisha. He saw the blanket. He saw the mud on her wrapper. Then he saw Madame Toby's heel crushing the paper beside her wheelchair. His face changed. All 5 men walked forward. Not one looked at the cameras mounted above the gate. Not one looked at the stunned guards. They stopped before Aisha and dropped to their knees on the wet pavement. Mama, Femi whispered. We finally found you. Aisha touched his face. For 1 second, she did not look like the woman who had challenged a corporation. She looked like somebody who had been holding herself together until a familiar hand arrived. My sons, she said. Her voice broke. Ifeanyi bent his head against her knee. Sani covered his mouth. Chukwuma picked up the scattered photographs with shaking fingers. Kelechi stared at the names on the old payment schedule. Madame Toby removed her heel. This is a misunderstanding, she said quickly. Femi stood. His voice was calm. That frightened her more than shouting would have. Madam, step away from her documents. You cannot come here with a convoy and intimidate my staff. We have not threatened anybody. She was lawfully discharged at 5:42 a.m., without family, transport, medication, or a copy of the discharge notice. She refused to cooperate. With what? Tobe glanced at the papers. Femi followed her eyes. With what? He repeated. Aisha held his wrist. First, take me somewhere safe. That sentence changed everything. The men stopped looking at Toby. Aisha came first. Sani wrapped the blanket properly around her. Ifeanyi lifted the travel bag. Chukwuma placed every loose document into clean plastic folders from his vehicle. Kelechi photographed the pavement, the gate, the box, and the page marked by Toby's heel. Femi turned to one of the guards. What is your name? The guard hesitated. You do not have to answer me now, Femi said. But do not delete anything. CCTV, entry logs, duty rosters, internal messages. A formal preservation notice will arrive within the hour. Madame Toby scoffed. You think your big grammar will frighten us? No. I think records will tell us what happened. He looked at Aisha. Then the 5 men took her away. They did not break the gate. They did not slap anybody. They did not need to. By 6:27 a.m., Aisha was inside a private hospital examination room. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. She was dehydrated. A bruise darkened her upper arm. The skin near her lower back showed early pressure damage, consistent with long periods without repositioning. The doctor asked whether Aisha wanted her sons inside during the examination. Aisha said no. They waited outside. That small choice mattered. Protection does not mean taking control away from the person you are protecting. At 8:03, Aisha asked them to enter. The tin box sat on the table. All 5 men looked at it. Kelechi spoke first. "Mama, why is my old accounting exercise book inside land records from 1999? Aisha rested both hands on the cream blanket. "Because before I taught all of you to write down the truth, I helped somebody write down a lie." The hospital room went still. A trolley squeaked somewhere in the corridor. A monitor beeped behind the wall. Rainwater moved in thin lines down the window. Inside the room, 5 men, who had trusted Aisha with every difficult truth of their lives, waited for hers. Aisha opened the tin box. She removed the original compensation schedule first. Then the duplicate vouchers. Then the cassette wrapped in a handkerchief. Last came the statement bearing her signature. Femi read it. His eyes moved slowly across the page. Kelechi stood behind him. "What is it?" Ifini asked. Femi did not answer immediately. He handed the document to Kelechi. Kelechi read the first paragraph. His mouth tightened. The second paragraph made him step back. "You signed that every family received payment," he said. Aisha nodded. "But this schedule says they did not." "Yes, you knew?" "Yes." The word landed harder than any excuse. Sani pulled a chair closer to Aisha. Chukwuma remained near the window, arms folded tightly across his chest. Ifini paced once, then stopped. Kelechi held up the statement. "You taught us not to bring money home if we could not explain where it came from." "I know. You sold your bangles so I could collect a certificate. You made me return 2 naira. 2 naira, Mama. I remember. And you collected 68,500 naira to sign this." Aisha did not defend herself. "Yes." Kelechi laughed once. But there was no humor in it. "All these years, you were checking our books while this thing was under your bed." Femi raised a hand. "Let her explain." No, Kelechi turned on him. "Do not start lawyering the truth before she speaks it." Aisha looked at Kelechi. "Your anger is correct." He stared at her. "Do not agree with me as if that will make it clean." "It will not." "Then why?" Aisha told them. She told them about her brother, the police station, the knife, Uch Johnson's envelope, the threat that a person could disappear inside a file nobody opened. She told them how she signed, how her brother returned, how she shared some of the money as if charity could wash it, how she copied documents but kept waiting for courage to arrive like a visitor. It never did. "I was afraid," she said. "Then I became ashamed of being afraid. After that, every year of silence made the next year harder." Kelechi's eyes were wet, but his voice stayed hard. "People lost homes, I know. Some died, I know. You could have come to Femi when he became a lawyer. Yes. You could have come to me when I started investigating fraud. Yes. You could have come to any of us. Yes." He dropped the statement on the table. "I need air." Kelechi walked out. Nobody stopped him. Aisha closed her eyes. Ifini crouched beside her. "Mama, look at me." She did. "Did Chief Uche know you still had these documents?" "Not until Madam Toby searched my room. I told her about the schedule because I was angry." Femi exhaled through his nose. "Did you ever alter any document?" "No." "Did anybody else know about the cassette?" "An accounts clerk gave it to me." "I do not know whether he is alive." "Did you record the other residents without consent?" No, I wrote only what they allowed." "Did you sign any document at Harbor Grace?" "No." "Good. Aisha looked at him. You should also be angry. I am. You are hiding it. I am arranging it. That sounded so much like Aisha that Sani almost smiled. Femi continued, Mama, I will not promise that these papers will win a case. Some are old. Some may be challenged. Your confession will be used against you. The cassette will need authentication. The land records may have changed several times. I understand. Do you? Yes. If we proceed, your name will not remain clean. It is not clean now. The public may call you a liar. I lied. They may say you are speaking only because you want compensation. Then we show them where every naira goes. Femi studied her face. What do you want? Aisha looked at the 5 chairs, one of them empty because Kelechi had walked out. I want the people who signed without understanding to know what they signed. I want those old claims examined properly. I want Harbour Grace to stop treating age like the end of personhood. And I want to say what I did before somebody else uses it to silence me. Sani nodded slowly. That is enough to begin. It was not enough for Kelechi. He stood beneath the hospital awning for 37 minutes, watching rain strike the parking lot. He remembered Aisha selling her bangles. He remembered her making him write every amount. He remembered the first time a senior accountant told him fraud investigators were professional doubters. Now doubt had entered the person he trusted most. Chukuma found him there. He did not speak at first. Kelechi said, You knew she was hiding something. I noticed something. You should have pushed. She had the right to refuse. People use rights to hide harm. And people use love to force confessions before someone is ready. Kelechi turned. Whose side are you on? The truth's side, even when it is untidy. Kelechi looked away. Chukuma continued. She did wrong. She also kept evidence. Both things can be true. That does not cancel the wrong. No, it gives us work. Kelechi stayed outside another 5 minutes. Then he returned. He did not hug Aisha. He pulled a chair to the table, opened his laptop and said, I need every number you remember. That was forgiveness in its earliest form. Not softness. Work. By 9:30 a.m. Femi had sent formal preservation notices to Harbour Grace, Johnson Urban Projects, the care regulator, and the event company managing the Human Dignity Leadership Award scheduled for the following week. At 10:12, an application for an emergency order was being prepared to prevent destruction of resident files, CCTV recordings, consent forms, and land transaction records. At 11:08, Kelechi made high-resolution copies of every paper in the tin box. Each item received a number. Each scan received a digital fingerprint, so later changes could be detected. Chukwuma photographed the condition of the cassette and arranged for an accredited laboratory to recover its audio without playing the fragile tape on an ordinary machine. Sani contacted an independent elder rights organization. He did not ask them to support Mama. He asked them to provide an advocate whose duty would be to Aisha, not to her sons. Ifini began locating former Kalama residents through transport unions, market associations, church registers, and old address books. They moved quickly, but not carelessly. At 2:06 p.m., Madam Toby sent a public statement to 3 newsrooms. It said Harbour Grace had discharged a resident after repeated violence, harassment of staff, and signs of severe cognitive decline. It accused 5 wealthy individuals of intimidating workers and removing confidential property. By 2:40, a short video of the SUVs outside the gate had appeared online. The caption read, Powerful men storm care home over confused old woman. Comments multiplied. Some defended Aisha. Some called the sons opportunists. Others said, rich people always used convoys to bully workers. Chief Uche gave a radio interview before sunset. He spoke with sorrowful patience. Our organization has served elderly Nigerians for years, he said. It is unfortunate that private family disagreements are being converted into a media spectacle. We must protect vulnerable seniors from financial manipulation, even when that manipulation comes from relatives. Femi listened from Aisha's hospital room. Ifeanyi clenched his fist. He is calling us thieves. He is inviting us to answer emotionally, Femi said. So what do we do? Nothing tonight? Nothing? We secure facts first. Aisha looked at the radio. That is how he speaks when he is afraid. Femi turned to her. How do you know? He becomes gentle. At Harbour Grace, the preservation notice arrived at 3:17 p.m. At 3:29, a staff account attempted to delete 14 days of corridor footage. The cloud backup kept an activity log. At 4:02, another account changed the wording of Aisha's care notes from decline document pending legal advice to became aggressive during routine care review. The system recorded both versions. Madam Toby did not know that. Neither did Chief Uche. They believed digital records disappeared when a person pressed delete. Kelechi had built a career from people believing the same thing. The emergency order was granted the next afternoon. An independent officer supervised the copying of records. Harbour Grace was not shut down. That would have displaced residents and punished them for management's conduct. Instead, specific restrictions were imposed. No resident could be removed without documented safe transfer. No historical land waiver could be signed until independent advice was provided. No files could be altered or destroyed. A temporary external advocate was appointed. Madam Toby remained in her position pending investigation, but her access to records was limited. She called Chief Uche. You said the woman had no power. She has sons with money, he replied. They have records, old papers. A frightened witness, nothing more. The cassette may still work. Silence entered the call. Toby lowered her voice. What is on it? Uche did not answer. That frightened her. The next attack came through medicine. Harbour Grace released part of Aisha's care file to a friendly blogger. The notes described confusion, paranoia, and memory problems. The article asked whether a woman with possible dementia could provide reliable evidence about events from 1999. Femi refused to publish her private medical information in response. Instead, with Aisha's consent, he arranged an independent capacity assessment by a geriatric specialist with no connection to either side. The assessment lasted 2 hours and 21 minutes. Aisha was asked to explain the land waiver in her own words. She described the benefits, risks, alternatives, and consequences of refusing. She recalled dates, people, and details, but the assessment did not depend on memory alone. The specialist concluded that Aisha had full capacity to make decisions about her residence, medical care, legal representation, and participation in the land matter. She had mild age-related slowing, not dementia, not delusion, not incapacity. The report also noted something important. Disagreement with management was not evidence of mental illness. That line spread farther than the original smear. 3 former Harbour Grace employees contacted Femi's office. 2 current residents asked for independent legal advice. Families began requesting copies of documents signed on behalf of their parents. The story was becoming larger than Aisha. Chief Ut changed tactics. He requested a private meeting. Femi accepted on one condition: Aisha would choose whether to attend. She chose yes. The meeting took place in a conference room at the hospital. Chief Uche arrived in a dark burgundy kaftan, carrying no papers. He had aged well. His hair was silver at the temples. His voice remained smooth. When he saw Aisha, he paused. Aisha Nwosu, Uche Johnson, you have suffered. Do not borrow sympathy after collecting interest on silence. Uche sat. He looked at the 5 men behind her. So these are the famous sons. They are not the matter, Aisha said. They have made themselves the matter. Femi placed a recorder on the table. This meeting is being recorded with everyone's consent. Uche smiled. Lawyers. Femi did not smile back. Chief Uche folded his hands. I am prepared to resolve this quietly. Harbour Grace will apologize. Madam Toby can be reassigned. Aisha will receive a private apartment, lifetime medical cover, and 25 million naira for distress. Ifini inhaled sharply. Uch continued. The historic land claims are complicated. Records are incomplete. People have died. Companies have changed. Litigation may take years and produce nothing. A practical settlement protects Mama Aisha from public embarrassment. Aisha looked at him. What embarrassment? Uche's eyes moved to the old statement. The kind that comes when a woman who presents herself as a moral mother is shown to have taken money. Kelechi's face hardened. Aisha remained still. You think I have not told them? For the first time, Uche's expression slipped. Aisha leaned forward. I told them the amount. I told them why. I told them I signed. I told them I was afraid. What will you use now? Uche recovered quickly. The public is less forgiving than family. Then let the public hear it from me. His voice cooled. You are old. Court processes are slow. Then begin before I become older. You may die before it ends. Femi stood. The room tightened. Aisha raised one hand. Femi sat again. She looked directly at Uche. People already died before it began. That is what my silence helped you buy. Uche gathered himself. The offer expires tomorrow. No, Aisha said. It expired in 1999. The meeting ended. Outside, Kelechi walked beside Aisha's wheelchair. After several steps, he said, Mama. Yes, I am still angry. I know, but I am glad you told him before he could tell us. Aisha nodded. That is the difference between confession and exposure. One begins responsibility. The other only ends hiding. The cassette took 4 days to recover. The laboratory cleaned the tape, stabilized its damaged edges, and transferred the sound without altering the original recording. Static covered the first 40 seconds. Then voices emerged. One belonged to Uche Johnson. You could hear chairs moving, papers being shuffled, somebody coughing close to the microphone. A man asked why several households had been removed from the payment list. Uche answered, Head office cannot release money to people who have no proper title. Another voice said the community had occupied the land for decades and had been included in the approved schedule. Uche replied, Then move the money through liaison accounts. Let the acknowledgements show full settlement. By the time anybody understands, the site will be cleared. There was a pause. Then he added, Poor people do not fight documents. They fight hunger. Feed the hunger and the documents will survive. The room where the 5 men listened became cold. Aisha covered her mouth. She had never heard the recording before. Fear had kept her from playing it. The accounts clerk who gave it to her had risked everything to preserve a truth she had hidden beneath clothes. Femi stopped the audio. That sentence will make headlines, Ifini said. It will also be challenged, Femi replied. We need voice authentication, chain of custody, and supporting records. Everybody can hear it is him. Hearing is not the same as proving. Kelechi rewound to the section about liaison accounts. Blue docs, he said. Aisha looked at him. What? One voucher in the box paid money into Blue Docs community liaison account. Kelechi began searching company filings, archived bank references, and litigation records. The account itself had closed years earlier, but traces remained in annual reports. Blue Docs had transferred funds to 2 contractors. One contractor paid consultancy fees to a law partnership where Uche was a junior partner. The second contractor later became a subsidiary of Johnson Urban Projects. The sums were not identical. That was deliberate. Money had been split into irregular amounts, moved across dates, and described as mobilization, community transport, security coordination, and site preparation. Yet when Kelechi aligned the transactions beside the compensation schedule, a pattern appeared. 71% of the money left the project accounts within 9 days. Only 17 households could be confirmed as receiving direct payments. 11 received partial amounts. 55 had no verified payment at all. Kelechi stared at the final spreadsheet until dawn. Aisha brought him tea. He did not touch it. 55, he said. I know. No, Mama. We suspected. Now I can show it. Aisha sat opposite him. Will showing it return 27 years? No. Then do not let numbers make you feel more powerful than the people inside them. Kelechi looked at the names. What should I do? Find them. Or find the people who have the right to speak for what happened to them. Ask before using their stories. That became Sani's work. Open door staff traced former residents carefully. They did not arrive with cameras. They did not promise riches. They explained what records had been found, what remained uncertain, and how testimony might be used. Some people refused. Their refusal was respected. Some said the past had cost enough, and they wanted no further contact. Others agreed to speak. A retired dock worker showed receipts for rent paid after his family was displaced. A market woman had kept the notice given to her mother, though the ink had faded. A teacher produced a photograph of residents standing beside a compensation office that Johnson Urban Projects later claimed had never existed. One man had spent years blaming his father for wasting compensation money. The records showed the money had never reached him. He sat with the photocopy in his hands and cried without sound. I called him irresponsible until the day he died, he said. Sani did not tell him to forgive himself quickly. Some's wounds do not need advice in the first minute. They need witness. Ifeanyi used his driver's network to locate families who had moved to Aba, Uyo, Yenagoa, and Benin City. He paid travel costs through a transparent fund audited by Kelechi. Nobody's testimony was purchased. Reimbursement was documented. Witnesses were told they could stop at any time. Femi insisted on it. Truth collected through pressure becomes another form of harm, he said. Chukwuma focused on the land and buildings. The public records showed Harbour Grace had been constructed on Parcel 14B, while the proposed luxury development would occupy Parcels 14C through 19A. Johnson Urban Projects claimed all historical interests had been extinguished. But the site map filed with the planning authority contained a strange correction. A boundary line had shifted 18 meters east between two versions of the survey. That shift placed an old communal access road inside the company's private parcel. Chukwuma visited the site with an independent surveyor. They used current coordinates, archived aerial images, drainage channels, and surviving foundation markers. The old road had not disappeared. It had been covered by the rear parking area of Harbour Grace. The care home's recent repair invoices contained another problem. Johnson Urban Projects had charged the charitable facility 41,317,000 naira for structural reinforcement. After severe soil movement, Chukwuma inspected the work. Only minor repairs had been done. The invoices listed 84 steel columns. He found 12. They listed 320 bags of specialized grout. Site records showed 47. The same inflated contractor receiving repair money was linked to the new waterfront project. Harbour Grace was not merely being used to collect signatures. Its charitable budget was being drained to subsidize private development. That discovery changed the board. Several trustees had believed Chief Uche's reports. They had approved budgets based on professional documents and photographs. When shown the engineering discrepancies, two requested an emergency audit. Another resigned from the award committee. Chief Uche called them cowards. Madam Toby called them ungrateful. Neither word repaired an invoice. The Human Dignity Leadership Award was 6 days away. The organizers considered postponing it. Chief Uche objected. He insisted the allegations were a coordinated attack by greedy relatives, activist lawyers, and former squatters seeking to exploit a respected charity. He bought newspaper space. His photograph appeared beneath the headline, "Service must not bow to blackmail." He gave interviews beside elderly residents who had been selected by management. He promised a new medical wing. He said his life's work was being punished because he refused to hand public assets to opportunists. Madam Toby returned to Harbour Grace, wearing cream suits and speaking in whispers to cameras. "We love all our residents," she said, "even those who misunderstand us." But behind the cameras, residents were asking for copies of care plans, copies of payment records, copies of land waivers. Questions moved through the building faster than fear. Aisha visited Harbour Grace again under the court's protective conditions. The same gates that had shut behind her opened slowly. She wore a simple cream dress and an indigo scarf. Femi walked beside her, but did not push the wheelchair until she asked. An independent advocate accompanied them. Residents gathered in the common room. Aisha looked at their faces. "I did not come to tell anybody what to sign," she said. "I came to say you have the right to understand before you agree. You have the right to ask for somebody independent. You have the right to refuse without losing food, medicine, or shelter." A man near the window raised his hand. "What if they say we no longer understand? Ask how they assessed you. Ask what decision they say you cannot make. A person can need help with one thing and still decide another. Age is not a blanket they can throw over your voice." A woman asked, "What if our children tell us to sign?" Listen to advice. Then ask whose interest the paper protects. Family love does not remove your right to understand. Madam Toby watched from the doorway. Her face was rigid. After the meeting, she approached Aisha in the corridor. "You are enjoying this." Aisha looked at her. "Enjoying what?" "Making me look wicked. You put me outside. You threatened the entire project. I refused a document. You think that is different?" "Yes." Toby lowered her voice. "Do you know what it took for a woman like me to reach this position? Men like Chief Uche do not give second chances. They give instructions." Aisha studied her. For the first time, she heard fear beneath Toby's arrogance. "Then tell the truth," Aisha said, "and lose everything." "I lost years because I asked the same question." Toby's eyes flickered. Aisha continued, "Being under pressure may explain why you obeyed. It does not turn the gate into kindness. It does not make stolen phones reappear. It does not erase old people you frightened." Toby looked away. "Chief Uche will destroy me, maybe. But silence will also destroy you. It only does it more slowly." Madam Toby walked off without replying. That evening, she opened a locked drawer in her office. Inside were copies of directives from Johnson Urban Projects. Increase completion rate of historical waivers. Escalate non-compliant residents for behavioral review. Reduce unsupervised external communication. Prioritize discharge of claimants obstructing redevelopment milestones. One email carried Chief Uche's personal instruction. Aisha Nwosu must not leave with original documents. Toby photographed every page. Then she sat alone for 2 hours, unable to decide whether fear would command her again. The next morning, Femi received an encrypted folder from an unknown address. No message, only files. Kelechi verified the metadata carefully. Some documents matched records already seized. Others filled gaps. The folder alone could not prove who sent it, but the contents could be checked against servers and paper archives. Femi suspected Toby. He did not announce it. Whistleblowers deserved protection before praise. The independent audit produced its preliminary findings 1 day before the award ceremony. It identified related party transactions, inflated construction invoices, improper restrictions on resident communication, consent forms lacking evidence of explanation, and attempted deletion of records after legal notice. The Harbor Grace Board convened at 7 p.m. Chief Uche joined by video. He called the audit premature. He called the auditors biased. He called Aisha vindictive. Then one trustee played the recovered cassette. Poor people do not fight documents. They fight hunger. Chief Uche's face froze on the screen. He claimed the voice was fabricated. Kelechi presented the laboratory report. He claimed the context was missing. Femi presented meeting notes from the same date, found in archived legal correspondence. He claimed junior staff had acted without his approval. Chukwuma displayed the emails linking his office to the waiver targets and repair contractor. The board voted. 6 in favor of immediate suspension, 2 against, 1 abstention. Chief Uche Johnson lost operational control of Harbor Grace at 10:43 p.m. The award organizers were informed. They withdrew the honor, but the ceremony was not cancelled. Instead, the organizers changed the program into a public accountability forum on elder dignity, charitable governance, and historic displacement. Chief Uche announced that he would attend. He wants to control the room, Ifini said. Femi nodded. He believes public confidence can defeat documents. Aisha sat quietly. Sani asked, "Do you still want to speak?" "Yes, you do not have to. I know." Kelechi placed the old statement before her. "If you speak, this goes first." Aisha looked at him. He continued, "Not the cassette. Not the stolen money. Not the care home. Your signature." Ifini frowned. "Why give Chief Uche a weapon before we present evidence?" "Because if we hide it until he raises it, we repeat the same pattern," Kelechi said. Femi looked at Aisha. "The choice is yours." Aisha picked up the statement. "My son is right." Ifini paced to the window. "Mama, people will insult you. They already have. They will say you are a hypocrite. Maybe I was. You saved us. That does not erase the people I failed." The room fell quiet. Aisha folded the statement once. "A good thing I did later cannot purchase innocence for a wrong thing I did before. If respect means anything, it must include respecting the public enough to tell them the whole truth." The next evening, the hall was full. Journalists filled the back rows. Former Kalama residents sat together near the center. Families from Harbor Grace occupied one side. Regulators, lawyers, engineers, care workers, and charity trustees took the remaining seats. On stage, the old gold banner still read Human Dignity Leadership Award. The word award had been covered with a white strip. Chief Uche arrived in a burgundy agbada with a gold cap. Cameras followed him. He greeted people as though he still owned the evening. Madame Toby entered in a ruby-red suit. Whispers followed her. Femi wore cobalt blue, Keltechi wore charcoal grey, Chukwuma wore deep emerald, Sani wore ivory, Ifini wore black. Aisha entered last in cream and indigo. The hall rose. She did not smile. She did not wave. She carried the old statement in her hands. The moderator invited Aisha to the lectern. She asked for the microphone to be lowered. Nobody moved in the hall. Aisha unfolded the paper. "My name is Aisha Nwosu," she began. "In 1999, I worked at a temporary compensation desk for families removed from Kalama Waterside. I saw names disappear from an approved payment list. I knew some people had not received what the records later claimed they received. Chief Uche leaned back in his chair. Aisha continued. My younger brother was detained. I was told his file could disappear if I refused to cooperate. I was given 68,500 naira. I signed a statement saying the payments had been completed and the residents left willingly. A sound moved through the audience. Not a shout, a collective breath. Aisha held up the paper. This is my signature. Chief Uchi's lawyer whispered into his ear. Uchi's shoulders loosened. For the first time that evening, he smiled. Aisha saw it. I was afraid, she said, but fear does not change what my signature helped to do. I kept copies of records. I kept a tape. I told myself that keeping evidence meant I was still a good person. It did not. Evidence hidden for 27 years cannot shelter a family in the rain. A woman in the center row began to cry. Aisha's voice trembled, but she did not stop. I am sorry to the families whose suffering I watched. I am sorry to those who died believing nobody remembered. I cannot ask this hall to respect my dignity while hiding the moment I failed to respect theirs. Kelechi lowered his head. Ifini pressed both hands against his knees. Aisha placed the statement on the lectern. I am not here because I am innocent. I am here because silence should not become permanent simply because truth arrived late. She stepped away. For 1 second, the hall remained frozen. Then somebody began to clap. One person. Slowly. Another joined. Then another. The applause rose, but Aisha did not receive it like a celebration. She returned to her seat and looked at the floor. Chief Uche asked to speak immediately. The moderator allowed him 5 minutes. He approached the lectern with the confidence of a man who had spent decades turning uncertainty into authority. What we have heard, he said, is a deeply emotional confession from an elderly woman burdened by guilt. I sympathize with her, but guilt can distort memory. Old documents can be misunderstood. Recordings can be edited. And successful relatives can encourage vulnerable people to reopen matters for financial gain. He looked toward the audience. Johnson Urban Projects followed all lawful instructions available at the time. We built roads, hospitals, jobs, and Harbor Grace itself. Are we perfect? No. But development requires difficult decisions. We must not allow sentiment to rewrite history. A few people nodded. Chief Uche saw them and grew bolder. He pointed toward Aisha. She has admitted accepting money. Yet my organization is being tried in public while she is being applauded. Is that justice? Kelechi rose. The moderator called him forward. He carried no dramatic box, only a laptop and 3 printed tables. My name is Kelechi Ibe. I am a forensic accountant. Mama Aisha's confession is not the case against Chief Uche Johnson. It is one piece of evidence, and it is evidence against her as well. The room sharpened. Kelechi displayed the approved compensation schedule. 83 households, 18,742,650 naira. He displayed verified payments. 17 households paid directly, 11 paid partially, 55 with no confirmed payment. Then came the transfers. Blue Docs Community Liaison Account, 2 contractors, consultancy fees, related companies. Dates aligned beside demolition notices. Kelechi spoke without raising his voice. These findings are based on archived filings, bank references obtained through lawful process, company reports, payment vouchers, and records already verified by independent auditors. They do not depend on whether anybody likes Aisha Nwosu. Chief Uche interrupted. Those tables prove nothing about my personal involvement. Kelechi clicked once. A scanned invoice appeared, authorized by Uche's former law partnership. then another. Then a letter instructing the claims desk to classify unsigned households as voluntarily settled. Chief Uche stopped speaking. Kelechi looked toward him. Numbers can be arranged to lie, but lies become expensive because every movement leaves a cost somewhere. He returned to his seat. Chukwuma went next. He displayed 2 survey maps. The original boundary, the altered boundary, an 18-meter shift. He showed aerial images, foundation markers, drainage lines, and the location of the old communal road beneath Harbour Grace's rear parking area. Then he turned to the repair invoices. Harbour Grace was charged for 84 steel columns, he said. 12 were installed. It was charged for 320 bags of specialized grout. 47 were delivered. It was charged 41 million. 317,000 naira for structural reinforcement that did not occur as invoiced. Photographs appeared. Empty anchor points. Fresh paint over old cracks. Delivery logs. Chief Uche's lawyer objected that the engineering review was preliminary. Chukwuma nodded. Yes, that is why I am not declaring guilt. I am explaining why the board ordered a full independent audit and why payments were suspended. That sentence mattered. He did not exaggerate. Truth did not need decoration. Femi approached the lectern with a thick folder. He explained the difference between capacity and convenience. An elderly person does not lose the right to decide because management dislikes the decision, he said. Capacity must relate to the specific choice. It must be assessed fairly. Refusal is not confusion. Persistence is not paranoia. Asking for a copy is not aggression. He displayed the 2 versions of Aisha's care note. The original read, "Declined document pending legal advice." The altered version read, "Became aggressive during routine care review." The timestamp showed the change occurred after the preservation notice. Femi displayed the deletion attempt from the CCTV system. Then he played the gate footage. The hall watched Madam Toby order the guards to wheel Aisha outside. They watched the tin box fall. They watched the ruby-red heel come down on the compensation schedule. They heard Toby say, "You refuse to sign, so sleep on the road. Nobody is coming for you." The footage stopped. Nobody moved. Madam Toby's face had lost all color. Femi did not insult her. He did not call her a monster. He faced the audience. This is why institutions need external complaints systems. A resident who depends on the same management for food, medication, transport, and communication cannot safely challenge that management without protection. Good character is important. Structure is stronger. A humane institution must not require every vulnerable person to meet a heroic employee before being treated lawfully. Sani followed. He did not present money. He presented people. With permission, photographs of former Kalama residents appeared on the screen. Some had agreed to speak by video. Others had sent written statements. Several chose anonymity. Sani explained each choice. No testimony was purchased, he said. Travel expenses were reimbursed through an audited fund. People were told they could refuse. Some refused. Their refusal is also part of dignity. A former dock worker described sleeping beneath tarpaulin after the demolition. A retired teacher explained how her mother died, believing her husband had collected compensation and abandoned the family. A market trader held up the original notice preserved inside a Bible for 27 years. Then the man who had blamed his father appeared on screen. "I called my father a liar," he said. "The records now show the payment never came. I cannot apologize to him because he is dead. But I want his name cleared." The screen went dark. Sani looked across the hall. When people are denied housing, identity documents, wages, and safe routes to work, we later judge the desperate choices they make. We call them criminals before examining the doors we locked. Mama Aisha helped 5 of us because she did more than feed us. She helped us obtain documents, training, written agreements, and a way to complain. Charity without structure may ease pain for one night. Rights and opportunity change what tomorrow can become. Ifini was the last of the sons to speak. He stood without slides. When I was young, an employer ordered me to drive an overloaded truck with a bad tire. He told me to die quietly if anything happened. I refused and lost my job. Mama Aisha taught me that the person controlling work must carry responsibility for risk. He turned toward the Harbor Grace trustees. The same principle applies here. It is not enough for senior leaders to say they did not personally push a wheelchair. If they created targets that rewarded forced signatures, blocked communication, and punished refusal, then leadership must answer for the danger it designed. He sat. Chief Uche stood abruptly. "This is theater!" His voice cracked through the hall. "You bring emotional witnesses, old audio, technical jargon, and one disloyal administrator, then pretend development is a crime." All eyes moved to Madame Toby. She remained seated. Chief Uche realized his mistake. Femi looked at her, but did not call her forward. The decision was hers. Madame Toby stared at the stage for a long time. Then she stood. Her ruby-red suit looked painfully bright beneath the white lights. She walked to the lectern. Chief Uche whispered. "Think carefully." Toby stopped. For years, that voice had directed her choices. Increase completion rate. Reduce external communication. Escalate non-compliant residents. Aisha must not leave with original documents. Toby faced the hall. "My name is Toby Adebayo. I was the director of Harbor Grace. Was." The word traveled through the room. "I received instructions from Johnson Urban Projects to obtain historical waivers from identified residents. We were given monthly completion targets. Residents who refused were labeled difficult. Their access to calls and activities was sometimes restricted. I approved some of those restrictions." Chief Uche rose. "This woman is lying to save herself," Toby continued. "I authorized the search of Aisha Nwosu's room. I removed her phone. I approved false notes describing her as aggressive. I ordered her discharge without safe transfer." Her voice shook. "I did these things." Aisha watched her. Toby took a breath. "Chief Uche instructed me to prevent Aisha from leaving with original documents. I have provided copies of those instructions to investigators. But I will not say I had no choice. I had choices. They were frightening choices. I chose my position over residents who depended on me." The hall was silent. Toby looked at Aisha. "I am sorry." Aisha did not rescue her from the discomfort. She did not say it was fine. It was not. Toby returned to her seat. Chief Uche remained standing. His gold cap had shifted slightly. His face shone beneath the lights. "You are all celebrating confession as if it repairs anything," he said. Aisha spoke from her chair. "No. Confession begins repair. It does not complete it." The moderator announced the formal decisions already authorized by the relevant bodies. Chief Uche's suspension from Harbor Grace remained in force. The care regulator had opened disciplinary proceedings against the facility's leadership. The charitable board had frozen payments to connected contractors. A court had restricted disposal of disputed parcels while historic claims were reviewed. Financial investigators had begun examining the liaison accounts and related transactions. Independent advocates would meet every resident who had signed a waiver. No arrest took place on stage. No judge declared a final verdict that night. Real accountability rarely arrives in one dramatic knock. It comes through files, hearings, audits, testimony, and the slow refusal to let powerful people exhaust everybody into silence. Chief Auche left through a side door. Cameras followed him. This time, he did not stop to greet anybody. Outside the hall, former Kalama residents surrounded Aisha. Some hugged her. Some thanked her. One woman stood at a distance with her arms folded. "My mother died without her money," she said. "I am not ready to forgive you." Aisha nodded. "You do not owe me forgiveness." The woman's eyes filled. "But I will give you every document I have," Aisha continued. "And I will not ask you to make me comfortable while doing it." The woman looked at her for a long moment. Then she walked away. Kelechi moved closer to Aisha. "Are you all right?" "No, do you want to leave?" "Not yet." She stayed until the last former resident who wished to speak had spoken. The legal process continued for 14 months. Investigators confirmed that compensation money had been diverted through liaison accounts and contractors. The court did not pretend every missing record could be reconstructed. Some claims lacked documents. Some heirs disagreed. Some people could not be found. So the remedy was designed in layers. Verified unpaid households received compensation adjusted through an agreed formula. Households with partial evidence entered an independent review process. A community fund financed legal assistance, rental support, and small business recovery for affected families. The disputed communal access road was restored as public land. Profits from the waterfront parcels were restricted until claims were resolved. Johnson urban projects did not disappear overnight. Companies are made of employees, creditors, clients, and projects that may have nothing to do with wrongdoing. Destroying everything would have harmed people who had not designed the fraud. Instead, Chief Uche lost control. He was removed as board chair. His voting powers were suspended during proceedings. The related contractors were barred from further charitable work pending review. Civil claims followed. Criminal charges were considered based on authenticated records and witness evidence, not public anger. His reputation, which had taken decades to polish, could no longer protect him from questions. Every speech about compassion now carried the sound of his own recorded voice. Poor people do not fight documents. They fight hunger. He had been wrong. They had fought both. Madam Toby's professional license was suspended during disciplinary proceedings. She lost her position at Harbour Grace. She was required to cooperate with the investigation and complete supervised training on consent, safeguarding, and whistleblower duties before any future care management role could be considered. Some people said she deserved prison immediately. Others said she should be forgiven because she testified. Aisha rejected both easy answers. "Let evidence decide the legal consequence," she said. "Let repair decide whether remorse is real." Toby later worked, without publicity, with the team reviewing resident files. She was not placed in authority over residents. She helped identify procedures she had used to restrict communication and showed auditors where altered records were stored. Her cooperation did not erase her conduct. It reduced the harm still waiting to happen. Harbour Grace remained open under new management because residents needed stability. But its structure changed. Every resident received a plain language agreement. Independent advocates visited weekly. Complaints went to an external office, not only to facility management. No phone could be removed without documented safety reasons and review. No resident could be described as incapable merely because of age or disagreement. Consent discussions had to be recorded in the resident's preferred language, with copies provided. Quarterly reports published the number of complaints, response times, outcomes, and unresolved concerns. Staff received safeguarding training, but training was not treated like magic. Supervisors were audited. Targets were reviewed for hidden pressure. Whistleblowers had protected channels outside the chain of command. The board proposed renaming the facility Aisha Nwosu Care Home. A ceremony was planned. A sign had already been designed. Aisha refused. The trustees came to her bungalow carrying sketches and speeches. The 5 sons sat nearby, smiling because they expected her to accept. Aisha studied the proposed sign. Then she pushed it back. No, Ifini blinked. Mama, why? An institution should not need my name before it remembers that old people are human. Nobody answered. Aisha continued. Call it Harbor Grace if you like. Change the behavior. A good name on a bad system is only decoration. The trustees abandoned the renaming plan. Instead, the facility opened an independent resident rights office in the room where Aisha's phone had once been kept from her. The office door was painted indigo. Above it, a simple sign read, Ask, Understand, Decide. Sani expanded Open Doors' transitional housing program for adults leaving homelessness. It included identity document support, written apprenticeship agreements, financial literacy, and independent complaints channels. Kelechi created a small forensic accounting fellowship for young people from displaced communities. The first lesson used a 2-column exercise book. Money in, money out. Chukwuma developed a public guide showing ordinary people how to compare building invoices with actual work. No big grammar. Photographs. Measurements. Questions anybody could ask. Femi helped draft a model consent policy for elder care facilities. He insisted the plain language version be written before the legal version, not after. Ifini funded safe transport for residents attending external medical and legal appointments. Drivers were trained never to decide that an old person's destination was unnecessary. The 5 men did not place Aisha inside a mansion. They repaired her modest bungalow. Chukwuma installed handrails and non-slip floors. Ifini arranged transport. Femi placed care decisions in documents chosen by Aisha. Kelechi created a transparent account for expenses. Sani helped her select 2 caregivers who worked in shifts and understood that assistance was not ownership. Aisha kept her own key. She decided when the door opened. On Sundays, the 5 men returned. The table was larger now, but Aisha still watched who took too much meat before others were served. She still asked about workers' wages. She still kept the old household exercise book, though the pages had become soft at the corners. One Sunday, Kelechi brought a framed copy of the first page. 6 names. 2 columns. Aisha laughed. You are framing debt? I am framing the beginning of an audit trail. Femi shook his head. Accountants can remove emotion from anything. Kelechi looked at Aisha. Not anything. The laughter faded gently. Aisha reached for his hand. Are you still angry? Sometimes. Good. He frowned. Good? Anger can guard a lesson if it does not become the whole house. Kelechi squeezed her hand. I forgive you, Mama. Aisha's eyes filled. Thank you. But I will still correct you when you are wrong. She smiled. That is how I know the forgiveness is healthy. 1 year after the morning at the gate, Aisha returned to Harbor Grace for the publication of its first independent residence report. There were no red carpets, no giant portraits of donors, no rehearsed elderly people placed in front of cameras. The meeting took place in the common room. Residents sat where they preferred. Some came with relatives. Some came alone. An interpreter sat beside a woman who understood the discussion better in her first language. Printed summaries used large letters and short sentences. Aisha noticed all of it. She also noticed what was still imperfect. One call bell rang for 9 minutes before anybody answered. A staff member spoke over a resident instead of waiting for him to finish. The complaints report listed 3 cases as resolved, though the residents involved said they were still waiting for written outcomes. The new director began to apologize. Aisha raised her hand. Do not use apology to close the matter. Write the correction. Give them dates. The director nodded. The 3 cases were reopened before the meeting ended. That moment did not look dramatic enough for a newspaper front page. Nobody knelt. No convoy arrived. Yet Aisha considered it one of the most important victories. A system had been corrected in front of the people using it, not hidden after they left. During the meeting, a resident asked to speak privately with Aisha. It was the woman who had said she was not ready to forgive her. She carried a cloth folder under one arm. My mother's name was on the unpaid list, the woman said. Aisha nodded. I remember. The review panel has accepted the claim. I am glad. I am not here to thank you. You do not have to. The woman opened the folder. Inside were rent receipts, photographs, and letters written by her father after the demolition. I want these copied for the community archive, she said. But the originals remain with me. They should. And I want the archive to state that some families never forgave the people who helped hide the payments. Aisha swallowed. It should state that clearly. The woman studied her face. Why are you not defending yourself? Because your condition for preserving history is not an attack on me. For the first time, the woman's shoulders relaxed. I still do not know whether I forgive you. You can take your time. Maybe I will never. That is also yours to decide. They walked together to the indigo door of the resident rights office. An archivist copied each page while the woman watched. A receipt was issued for every document. The originals were returned before she left. Aisha smiled at the process. What? The woman asked. Nothing. You are smiling. I am remembering how people once collected papers from us without giving copies. The woman looked at the receipt in her hand. This small paper cannot return my mother. No, but at least nobody can say they never received what I gave them. That is how records should work. Before leaving Harbour Grace, Aisha went to the gate. The pavement had been repaired, but one dark mark remained near the place where her tin box had fallen. She touched the wheel of her chair and remembered the cold blanket, the mud, and Madame Toby's heel. Femi stood a few steps behind her. Do you want them to replace the whole pavement? He asked. No, why not? Because the mark is not harming anybody. She looked toward the entrance, where a staff member was explaining a transport form to a resident before asking for a signature. That is what I want changed. Femi nodded. As they drove away, Aisha did not look back at the building with triumph. Buildings were not good or wicked. Policies were not humane because somebody printed the word dignity above a door. People had to practice respect in small decisions, especially when no camera was present. That was why the new board published failures beside improvements. It was why complaints remained visible until the person affected agreed the issue had been addressed. It was why residents could choose advocates who did not receive salaries from Harbour Grace. The work was slower than a speech. It was also more honest. The published report did not hide behind general promises. It recorded 27 complaints during the year. 19 had been resolved. 5 remained under review. 3 had exceeded the agreed response time. 2 staff members had received formal warnings. 1 resident had changed representatives after saying a relative was pressuring him to sign financial papers. A trustee suggested removing those details because donors might become uncomfortable. Aisha asked him a simple question. Are the reports written to make donors comfortable or to make residents safer? The details remained. Donations fell for 1 quarter, then recovered when families realized the facility was willing to expose its own failures. Trust did not return because management claimed perfection. It returned because mistakes no longer had to disappear before they could be corrected. Aisha requested one final change. She asked the board to remove her photograph from the report's cover. "Why?" the designer asked. "You are the face of the reform." "No," she replied. "The residents are not supporting characters in my redemption. Put the complaint numbers on the cover. Let people see what the work is." They did, carefully. Years earlier, 5 hungry men had entered a room too small for 6 adults. Aisha did not save them with one meal. She gave them a dry floor for one night, then helped them find papers, work, training, boundaries, and a way to return after mistakes. They built their lives from many hands, many failures, and many second chances. When her own failure finally came into the light, they did not protect her with a lie. They protected her right to tell the truth. That was the deeper repayment. For me, the most painful part of Aisha's story is not that she was poor, old, or thrown outside before sunrise. It is that so many people believed those things made her easier to ignore. Chief Uche built power by treating hunger as a weapon and documents as walls. Madame Toby hid cruelty beneath professional language. Aisha herself once allowed fear to purchase her silence. None of them was changed by applause alone. Change began when facts were preserved, choices were respected, harm was named, and repair was made measurable. Respect is not calling an elderly woman mummy while taking away her phone. Kindness is not a brochure. Consent is not a signature collected from someone who was never allowed to understand. And justice is not the pleasure of watching a powerful man fall. It is the harder work of returning voice, property, safety, and choice to the people who were denied them. Sometimes, the first brave thing a person does is open a door for somebody in the rain. Sometimes, it is opening a tin box after 27 years. Both matter, because actions do come back. Not always as punishment. Sometimes as 5 grown men kneeling on wet pavement before the woman who once gave them a place on her floor. And sometimes as an old woman finally standing before the truth, without hiding, and discovering that dignity does not require a spotless past. It requires the courage to stop the harm from continuing.